Good evening and welcome to the 23rd Annual Awards Dinner of Americans for Immigrant Justice, AIJ. What a great organization. I'm Michael Putney from Channel 10. It is my privilege to be the MC for this evening, and it's one of, I don't know how many, 6, 7 years that I've done this, because when Cheryl Little asks you to do something, you just do it. And I have to say, there has never been a time when we have needed AI justice more. We have a president who, in his State of the Union speech, just talked fear-mongering, stirring up hate for immigrants, blaming them for larger societal problems, saying that, they are coming up in an invasion, a horde from South America, Central America, up the peninsula, an invading horde that will be somehow bused to a less secure part of the border. And then they're going to cross what he called our lawless southern border and come in and commit crimes against Americans. Most of this is not just nonsense, but dangerous nonsense. Factually incorrect nonsense, not that facts seem to matter to the president when it comes to immigration, but facts matter to AI justice. And that is why you are here. That is why I am here with my partner, Karen Evans. We believe in this great institution. We really need it. We need it because there is a humanitarian crisis on the border, but it's the one that has been caused to a large degree by the Trump administration. There are something like 5,000 or 6,000 people who are in Tijuana, and they're trying to apply for asylum, and they are being metered in at about 100 people a day. Well, that's inhumane. And then how about family separation, where children are being taken away from their parents? And 2 of those children have died in U.S. custody. This is inhumane and it is un-American. So for all of those reasons, and so many more, we need Americans for Immigrant Justice, AI Justice. For 23 years, it has provided essential legal and other counseling services to 130,000 people. What a remarkable record. Cheryl Little, one of my heroines, and her remarkable staff provide such critical, essential services to people who are caught up in a system that for an American is hard to understand. Imagine if you are from Guatemala or Honduras or Chiapas or wherever you are from, the Dominican Republic. Cheryl and her staff help all of them, and we support them. Your presence here shows how much you support them. Tonight we are going to honor, AI Justice is going to honor some other remarkable champions of freedom and justice, including a beautiful young dreamer who I just had the pleasure of meeting, a priest who has worked especially with the Guatemalan community for the last 50 years. And we're also going to, yes, Father O'Loughlin. And we're also going to meet and hear from former New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg. What a pleasure that is. Mr. Mayor, I want you to know that this afternoon I got an email from the Republican National Committee regarding you, and it says, no matter how much money Michael Bloomberg spends in Florida, he will ultimately fail. His anti-pro-growth platform would work to overthrow our thriving economy. It's clear that he would be soundly rejected by Floridians. You're a danger. That's why they sent out this notice. We can't wait to hear from Mayor Bloomberg, and we will later, introduced by former Miami Mayor Manny Diaz. But let me, if I can, acknowledge everybody is a VIP, but we have some very special elected officials and others who are with us this evening. Let me take a minute to go through. I did see former UN President, now Congresswoman Donna Shalala is here. Donna, welcome. I really don't want to sort of quote a private conversation, but I asked her, I told her I loved seeing her down there on the House floor during the State of the Union, and she said something like, that speech was so pedestrian. But get her to comment on it, she will. Also, I believe another new member of Congress from South Florida, Debbie Mucarsel-Powell, is here. Congresswoman, if you are here, we welcome you, congratulate you on a good start, and also want to acknowledge a really outstanding member of our community who served well in Congress for us, and that's former Congressman Carlos Curbelo. Carlos, it's great to see you. From the state legislature, I saw a minute ago, State Senator Jose Javier Rodriguez. Senator, great to see you. And I believe Senator Lauren Book of Plantation is with us, doing a terrific job. And State Representative Javier Fernandez, whom I just met. And from the Miami-Dade County Commission, the one and only Sally Heyman is here, showing pictures of her dog. I believe that a very outstanding Commissioner, Jean Monestine, is with us also. And Daniela Levine-Cava, I believe, is here. Daniela, are you here? Doing very, very good work on the environment and affordable housing. Miami-Dade County Commissioner Eileen Higgins is here. Commissioner Higgins, welcome to you. Great to see you. Also here is Miami-Dade Public Defender Carlos Martinez, does a terrific job defending people who need representation. Also, I saw a real critical member of our community here. Let's all welcome Miami-Dade School Superintendent Alberto Carvalho. Alberto, you've got another $430 million from the governor. Good for us, good for him. I mentioned a minute ago, former Miami Mayor and a good friend, Manny Diaz, is here. Manny, welcome to you, always good to see you. There are a number of outstanding jurists who are with us this evening, and I have to say, not that I have favorite judges, but Rosemary Barquette is here. Rosemary is a former Florida Supreme Court Justice. She is now at The Hague, and always great to see you, Rosemary. Federal Magistrate Judge Jacqueline Becerra is here, I believe. Judge Becerra. Also, earlier I saw Federal Magistrate Judge Chris McAlilly is here from the Southern District of Florida. Chris, welcome. U.S. District Court Judge Ursula Ungaro. Judge Ungaro, great to see you. Miami-Dade Circuit Court Judge Abby Sonneman. Circuit Court Judge Marissa Tinkler Mendez. Marissa, nice to see you. Circuit Judge Bertil Estolo. Bertie Soto is the chief judge in the circuit. She says that there's going to be a great new courthouse one day, 2020. Former Miami-Dade Circuit Judge and a good friend, Ellen Leesfield. Ellen, welcome. There you go. Former Miami-Dade Circuit Judge Frederica Smith. Frederica, welcome to you. County Court Judge Elijah Levitt and County Court Judge Betty Capote. To all of you, welcome. We're glad you're here, and thank you for your support. There are a number of consulates that are also represented here tonight. I haven't had a chance to greet him, but he's a terrific guy. The Consul General of Israel in Miami, Lior Hyatt. Consul Hyatt, welcome to you. The Consul General, yes. Consul General of Canada in Miami, Susan Harper. Consul General Harper, glad you're here. The Migration Council of Canada in Miami is Marie-Claire Lemay. And the former mayor of Providence and the former ambassador to Malta, Joseph Polino Jr. is with us. Also, the Deputy Consul of Mexico in Miami, Rita Vargas Torregrosso. And I also saw Edith Osman. Edith is a member of the ABA House of Delegates. Now, at this moment, I would like to ask us all to acknowledge, welcome the tremendous staff here at the Hotel Intercontinental who work so hard at every one of these banquets. So if you would, could we get the staff to come out and take a bow? Well, the staff is working, so thank them when you see them by your table. We also want to thank, from the bottom of our hearts, the chairpersons, honorary chair of this beautiful event, Sharon Carregas and Mitchell Berger from the host committee, and Markenzie and Andres Lapointe. So if I could ask Sharon and Mitchell and Andres and Markenzie to come up and say something to us, please come up.
Okay, Mackenzie said we go first, so we could do this like all together, can't we? All right. First of all, I think we all want to thank you for doing this tonight and thank Mayor Bloomberg. This was an unbelievable and outstanding show of support for immigrants and for immigrant justice. Where else but in Miami can we have people from the most conservative wings of the Republican Party and the most liberal wings of the Democratic Party join in, have dinner, and be in support of the American dream. This is what America is about. It is not about walls. It is about us sitting here tonight honoring our parents and our grandparents who made this possible for us, and hoping that our children and our children's children will feel the same way about future grandparents and parents. Thank you. Oh, your turn.
Yes, indeed. I don't know what to say at this point.
Even though you do work for boys.
Not anymore. Dear guests, my wife Andrews and I, we are honored to chair this year's host committee for this event. And we want to welcome you along with our firm, the Pillsbury family, my partner Jennifer Altman and my partner Mike Kuznitsky sitting over there, who support this event every year. And you know, there are many individuals who form the backbone of these organizations. And I've been given the scintillating and highly exciting task of talking about the board of directors. As you know, you cannot have a party without bringing up the board of directors. So it's been a pleasure working with the board, and I want to recognize them. They're one of the most active boards that I've ever seen. Not only do they show up every time, but they're also prepared. I've been impressed with how much they care about the issues, how much they attend to the issues, they care about the people on the ground, how much they care about the clients. or special clients in this case, which range from a 55-year-old asylum seeker to a 5-year-old child who has found himself across the border. So it's been an amazing privilege to watch these folks work and watch them care about this. Now, it's been particularly privileged for me and special for me as an immigrant myself, as a Haitian immigrant. And for me to work with these folks, it means a great deal. And it also compels me to also recognize another group. And with all the things we've heard about immigrants over the last, whatever, so many years, there is a group that we don't talk about a whole lot. And that is the group of immigrants who serve in our armed forces very, very proudly. And I've had an opportunity when I was young as a Marine to watch those immigrants. They're not from exactly necessarily from Finland or Sweden necessarily, although those are patriots as well. But I'm talking about folks from our background. I'm talking about Haitian Marines. I'm talking about Jamaican Marines. I'm talking about Cuban Marines in our background. And what I've noticed about these folks is they fight like every other Marine. They're tough. And one thing about them is they care very deeply about this country. Their patriotism rivals anyone else. And for me, as I watch that, every time I serve with the board, every time I show up at a meeting, I'm reminded of those people. It is about service. But the point that I want to make, though, is in closing, is this. You don't have to be in the Marine Corps. You don't have to be a hero, either in real life or in a movie. You can serve your country by doing the small things that I see that board does on a regular basis. And if I may just take, Mike, I know you're going to kill me. I just want to, if I could have every member of the board stand for a brief moment, wherever you are, I don't know where you are. If I could have you stand, please, members of the board. Thank you. Thank you so very much. Every time, every day I work with you, remind me of my friends, all the things that you do. Andrews and I, we thank you very much. Take care, folks. Thank you. Oh, my pleasure.
Well, we are going to have a little musical interlude here from the Miami Art Studio Choir. They are going to entertain us, so please welcome the Miami Arts Studio Choir.
Blackbird singing in the dead of night, take these broken wings and learn to fly. All your life, you were only black night. I'm not a stranger to the dark. Hide away, they say, 'cause we don't want your broken parts. I've learned to be ashamed of all my scars. Run away, they say, 'cause no one will love you as you are. But I won't let them break me down to dust. I know that there's a place for us, for we are glorious. When the sharpest words wanna cut me down, I'm gonna send a flood, I'm gonna drown them out. I am brave, I am proof, I am who I'm meant to be. This is me. Look out, 'cause here I come, and I'm marching on to the beat I drum. And I'm not scared to be seen, I make no apologies. This is me. Another round, no bullets hits my skin. We'll fire away, 'cause today I won't let the shame sink in. We are bursting through the barricades and reaching for the source. We are warriors, yeah, that's what we become. I won't let them break me down to dust. I know that there's a place for us, for we are glorious. When the sharp words wanna calm me down, the beat I drum, and I'm not there to be seen. I make no apologies. This is me, and I know that I deserve your love, but there's nothing I'm not worthy of. Ooh, this is me.
Wow. The Miami Art Studio Choir, they were great. Wonderful energy. Thank you all so much. Little splash of excitement for the evening. All right, well, here's the next splash of excitement, and that is something I look forward to at these dinners, and that is hearing from Cheryl Little, who is the leader for the last 23 years of Americans for Immigrant Justice. I have seen Cheryl at work. She is indomitable. She is tough. I like to say she is as tough as she is beautiful. So please welcome Cheryl Little.
Good evening. Wow, it's great to see you all. What a great crowd. Well, I'll just hold it. So usually at the beginning of each of our programs, we thank some of the most important people in the room, and they're the staff who are serving us tonight. So I would like them to be recognized, please. So this is a thrilling evening for me and our staff, and I'm sure some clients who are here. We're honoring two amazing honorees, and it's such a thrill to have Mayor Bloomberg here. I can't tell you how many people said, "How did you get him?" I said, "I know people who know people." But anyway, to more serious stuff. At last year's dinner, I was sharing concern about the fact that without a single brick, the border wall was being built. Without a doubt, this administration is doing everything possible to keep immigrants out and take away their basic rights. Each month, they're chipping away at fundamental laws and policies that protect immigrants' rights. Each week, we see new hurdles for our clients and immigrants across the country, and new challenges for the advocates who represent them. What's the latest attempt to shut down our asylum system, to gut it? Requiring asylum seekers coming legally, doing everything they can to make their claim to remain here legally. They arrive at our border. They're made to languish for months on end in Mexico while their case is pending here. The gutting of our asylum system, and denying a meaningful opportunity to people, many of whom are deserving of our help and deserving of our relief. And they've made it harder and harder for people to cross the border. I can tell you that just a few weeks ago, we met with a detainee at the Broward Transitional Center who, in December, put her name in a list of people who wanted to enter legally and who wanted to claim asylum. And she just arrived. She was 2 months in Mexico. She didn't know anybody in Mexico, but she wanted so desperately to be able to exercise her rights in the United States of America that she risked her life in Mexico in order to have the opportunity to make it to the United States and simply have an opportunity to make her case. Meanwhile, the massive deportation machine is working full steam ahead, and it's not the bad hombres they're picking up. It's long-term residents who've lived here for years, worked hard, paid taxes, have U.S. citizen children that are filling the beds of our detention centers. This includes nearly 1 million immigrants who weren't priorities for removal under the Obama administration or the Bush administration, and who used to be able to check in every year and get an updated work permit. Now when they check in, and they do because they want to do what they're being required to do by our government, chances are they end up in detention and deportation. We've got 300,000 recipients of temporary protected status who've lived here for upwards of 20 years. I mean, these people, 800,000 dreamers who are a constant inspiration to all of us, who've done nothing wrong and everything right. They're still in harm's way. And I think we have a number of dreamers with us here tonight, and I want to recognize them. Stand up, dreamers. We will fight. How can we think about turning these people away? How can we think about doing that? Arbitrary detentions have left tens of thousands of U.S. citizens without mothers, fathers, husbands, wives, siblings. Over 6 million U.S. citizens live with an undocumented parent or other undocumented family member. Even people applying for refugee status these days, trying to come legally, are no longer welcome. And so countless Muslims and others are facing desperate situations. The pace of the changes, the damage that's inflicting, has left our staff continually reevaluating the thousands of cases we have in order to determine which cases need to be prioritized and which cases need immediate assistance. The detention of immigrants in civil detention only, here in detention simply because they wanted an opportunity to make their case to fight removal, are costing U.S. taxpayers over $2 billion a year. In 1995, ICE had 7,500 beds. In fiscal year 2017, there were nearly 40,000 immigrant detainee beds nationwide in 200 facilities. Today, that number's 48,000. And our administration, this administration, keeps looking for more and more beds. Nearly 75% of the population is held in private prisons, primarily GEO, which runs the Broward Transitional Center, and CoreCivic, where conditions are often inhumane and there's very little oversight. These two groups donated hundreds of thousands of dollars to the Trump campaign, to President Trump's campaign. Their stock value doubled after the election. In 2017, GEO made $2.3 billion with a B, and CoreCivic made $1.8 billion. The remaining 25% of detainees are generally held in remote facilities, like county jails, where conditions truly are dreadful, where they have very little access to families or attorneys. Whenever ICE detainees are taken anywhere for a medical appointment, to be transferred from one facility to another, to be evacuated during a hurricane, they're handcuffed and shackled, including pregnant women. As Hurricane Irma was approaching, a number of female asylum seekers at BTC were flown to Georgia and Texas, handcuffed and shackled the entire time. One of these women, a domestic violence survivor, who had a complicated pregnancy, said the chain in her belly was so tight and so painful, she kept asking the officers if they could please loosen it, and finally gave up because they were just laughing at her. Another pregnant female said, she asked an officer, "Do we detainees have any rights?" And do you know what the answer was? Yeah, you have the civil right to shut up. Not making this up. And when survivors of trafficking, asylum seekers are in detention, and they're suffering from PTSD or depression, not only are they handcuffed and shackled during transfer to that hospital, local hospital, they're basically handcuffed and shackled 24/7. They'll take the shackles off when you shower. There'll be a couple of guards there, and that's about it. Women have told us they feel so humiliated because other patients are looking at them and thinking they're criminals. And they say all they want to do is tell them that they're not bad people. As troubling as everything I've just said is, the family separation of children from their parents at the border, whether they entered legally or not, and many of these people entered legally, is by far the cruelest policy thus far. While the Southwest Texas border was the epicenter for much of what was going on when you were watching the media, many of those children ended up here, and we ended up representing them in our local shelters. And it created unprecedented challenges for us because we were seeing younger and younger and younger children who couldn't even convey the basic information we needed in order to help prepare their immigration cases. Many times when our staff was meeting them, all the children would do is cry or look at our phones and say, "Can I use the phone to call my parent?" We had to meet with these children many, many times in order to try to get an idea of how we could best help them. Let's remember why so many of these families flee. El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras are among, and I'm not making this up, among the most dangerous countries in the world. They're gang infested, they're run by drug cartels who act with impunity. They undertake the dangerous journey because they believe it's the only way they can save their lives and the lives of their children. Our staff, our kids team, worked around the clock to reunite these families, but there was no plan in place to reunite them initially, not until a lawsuit was filed. And many of the children we represented, the parents were deported. And our government said, "Not going there. We're not going to help you find a parent if the parent's already been deported." Many of the children we represent had parents who felt coerced into signing statements in English, forms in English that they didn't understand because they were told by immigration people, if you sign this, you'll be reunited with your child. Except they weren't. They were then deported alone. I am winding up. Working to keep families together affects all of our work. Following the 2017 election, we began a new and extremely important program, the Family Defense Program. We advise people about, you got it, one of our most important programs right now. I'm looking at you, Mike. We advise people about their basic rights, and we actually screen their cases to determine if they're eligible to remain here legally. And we've identified a number of dreamers and TPS recipients and others who are. That's the good news. Now, why was this possible? It was made possible in large part thanks to Impact, the group, business and civic leaders led by this man right here, and his name is Mike Fernandez. Let's hear it for Mike. That's right. Despite the challenges, in 2018, we represented 120 children separated from their parents. We reunited successfully 100 of them. We provided Know Your Rights to over 5,000 children. We currently represent 450 children in immigration court. Our detention team assisted over 900 detainees. And they're working with the Southern Poverty Lawsuit. We're going to get out a report regarding conditions of detention in our South Florida facilities. Our Family Defense Program conducted over 2,000 legal screenings, one-on-one attorney with an immigrant, with the help of 600 volunteers. And we're representing 150 folks right now who we believe are eligible to remain here legally. And thanks to the Honorable Rosemary Barquette, my dear friend and a crackerjack attorney who helped us grow our detention team, we successfully filed a number of habeas petitions, among a number of other things we've done in litigation. On behalf of kids, these unaccompanied minors, the day they turn 18 here in Miami, they're handcuffed and shackled and taken to an adult facility. Even though they have family here they could be released to, and even though federal courts have said they should be in the least restrictive setting. So right now I want to ask our staff, because they do the heavy lifting, I just talk about it, to stand up and be recognized. All right. Go team, go. Go team, go. Finally, AI Justice is one of the few Florida-based nonprofit groups that represents immigrants facing removal. The demand for our services is overwhelming and can never be met. Though asylum seekers with attorneys are 5 times more likely to win their cases, if they're detained, 20 times more likely to win with an attorney. So I want to thank all of you for the support you've given us. And the final thing I will say is, no matter the challenges, we will continue defending men, women, and children caught in a system where they're too often treated like hardened criminals. And we will continue working with our Democratic and Republican friends in Congress for passage of fair, sensible immigration reform that brings hardworking immigrants out of the shadows, that ensures America's safety and prosperity, and that honors America's heritage. Thank you very much.
Cheryl, thank you. We understand even better how critical the work AI Justice does. All right, let's take a break and eat and enjoy. Also, you can go out and put final bids on the wonderful auction items. We will be back in a short time.
Ya, tú eres el oficial de inmigración.
¿Quién es?
Inmigración, abre la puerta.
Solo si tienen una orden de secuestro, abro.
The government has separated 2,000 kids from their parents.
They are being held in so-called tender age shelters.
Fueron a Miami en avión. Cuando bajábamos, lo volvían los jodidos.
Some of these kids might never potentially be reunited with their mothers.
Even after all the trauma and separation that these kids just went through, their nightmare is only getting worse.
En los Estados Unidos hay reglas, pero tienen un nombre diferente. Estas reglas se llaman leyes y todos tenemos que seguirlas.
Illegal entry is a crime as determined by Congress.
Every child that crosses the border without permission has an immigration court case to fight. The U.S. government is actually expecting these children as young as 18 months, unable to speak, to represent themselves in court against the government attorney.
Cuando cruzaste la frontera, hablaron con inmigración, me dijeron que sí, ¿no? ¿Cómo te sentiste?
Poco preocupado.
Poco preocupado, me imagino, sí.
Triste.
Un poco triste.
Everyone in America, including non-citizens, have a right to fair trial. However, under this administration, immigration judges are under pressure to meet quotas. They're expected to close 700 cases every year, and we're seeing that children's cases are being sped up.
¿Quién es esta persona?
El juez.
El juez, muy bien. ¿Alguien me puede explicar lo que hace un juez?
We were recently in court with a 3-year-old.
¿Alguien va a ser nuestro juez?
She can't say anything, not even her name.
Tú vas a hacerle las preguntas.
¿Cuántos años tienes?
8.
The child can't even sit on the chair by herself.
¿A dónde estás viviendo ahora?
No sé.
We have to physically pick up the child and place her on the chair.
¿Y estás yendo a la escuela?
Todavía no.
Some of them talk about seeing family members murdered. It's not uncommon for us to have a 5-year-old describe to us what a dead body on the street looks like, or how he heard bullets from a gun being shot. For many of these kids, if they get ordered deported, going back to their home country could mean death.
Okay, ¿alguien sabe lo que es un derecho? ¿Me lo puede explicar?
Yo.
Sí.
A comer.
Derecho a comer, a la comida, muy
A
bien.
dormir. A jugar. A estudiar.
It's up to Congress to act and give children the right to attorneys in immigration court. These children are fighting not just to stay here, but to live. They deserve at least a chance to a fair fight.
¿Qué quieren hacer en el futuro? ¿Cuáles son sus sueños?
Quiero ser policía. Rescatar a las personas.
Yo voy a ser policía para guardar el mundo de los criminales.
Muy buen trabajo hoy.
Hi, I'm Christina Dominguez. I'm the president of the AI Justice Board, a former attorney in the Children's Legal Program, and a longtime AI Justice superfan. Cheryl, you're my rock star. The video we just saw was made by the New York Times, and they spent some time with our Children's Legal Program. They were understandably super impressed with the work we do, helping the kids navigate a confusing system they obviously can't navigate on their own. You guys saw that coloring book. They conceptualized that, produced it. Amazing. One of our awesome attorneys, Jennifer Valdez, the star of the video, said at the end, these kids deserve, at the very least, a chance to a fair fight. But Jennifer and her 49 colleagues at AI Justice are giving these kids and their families much more than a fair fight. They're giving love, compassion, respect. That's right. They're treating these immigrants like human beings, not just case numbers, and certainly not as potential dangers to our community. They're giving these kids a voice. And as you saw in the video, without AI Justice, these kids would have to stand in front of a judge against a government attorney trying to deport them without any representation or idea of what's going on. And when I say give them a voice, I don't mean a voice to say, I want to go to Disney World.
It's a voice to explain that when I turn 13, I choose to join the gang or I die. It's a voice to explain that when I leave school to go home, I might get raped. That's the voice they're trying to give. That's not all that AI Justice does every day. We advocate for survivors of human trafficking and domestic violence. We call out abuses by hostile bureaucracies. We brought attention to the plight of the Dreamers, many of which are here tonight. We're going to hear more. I'm so excited. We give a lifeline to vulnerable immigrants who face unjust deportation after years in this country but cannot afford an attorney to help assert their rights. What AI Justice does is treat others the way you and I would like to be treated, and fight to make sure the system treats them the same way as well. I guess you could call them a golden rule factory. It's manufacturing and distributing compassion and respect. It's treating human beings who were lucky enough to be born in this country the way we were, the way we would want to be treated under the same circumstances. But all factories need revenue, and we are giving out our product for free. You probably know where this segue is going. It's the uncomfortable time of the evening when I ask for help. And you and I both know that when I say help, I mean money. So we would like to offer you the opportunity to invest in our Golden Rule Factory. The returns are outstanding, even though they won't return directly to you. Nobody's getting rich at AI Justice, but the dividends for our clients are priceless. On your table, you will see a white envelope. Please consider a tax-deductible donation. This is our one annual fundraiser. It's our only opportunity to ask you for help. So we are asking for help. Every year at these dinners, my friends turn to me and they say, what should I give? My response is usually, I like your bag. But no, seriously, my response is as much as you can. What would you want someone to do for you? On behalf of the entire board, thank you so very much.
Christina, that was a great pitch. The check is on the table. Well, it's time to present our first award this evening. It is the Holly Skolnick Human Rights Award, wonderful award given over the years in honor of Holly Skolnick. And tonight, yes indeed, tonight the recipient of this award is a remarkable priest, Father Frank O'Loughlin. His cheering section is down there particularly, but all over this room. For more than 50 years, Father Frank has been working, advocating alongside migrant men, women, and children in the state of Florida. He is the co-founder of the Hope Rural School in Indiantown, an educational center tailored for the needs of migrant workers, which continues to provide individual assistance to farm workers engaged throughout the state of Florida. He also is the founder of the Guatemalan Maya Center in Lake Worth, where he currently serves as executive director. Under his leadership, 1,000 families every month of Mayan descent are given services. They represent 28 different countries. They speak 25 different languages. I think Father Frank speaks at least a few of them. He speaks the language of the heart. Now we have a short video about Father Frank that includes photos and a message from Peter Upton, who first met Father Frank almost 4 decades ago when Peter was an immigration lawyer with the American Friends Service Committee. Let's see the video.
Frank has a burning passion to represent, to help in any way he can this very vulnerable population. I interacted with him frequently because there was a large population of Mayan Indians living in the parish where Frank was located at the time, which is Indiantown, Florida, a very rural, one-stoplight town. And he was, as a result, most of the population there were very vulnerable farm workers. If you were to look into what the population of farm workers was back there, it was like a patchwork of like a United Nations. You had H2 workers, West Indians, Jamaicans working in the sugar fields. You had farm workers who had worked in the fields for many years, picking oranges and many other things. Then you began to have the even more vulnerable populations, such as Haitians and Central Americans. These were all sort of Frank's flock, and he tended to them as best he could, but he did it in a very holistic way. For example, in a small town like Indiantown, he knew that housing was a serious problem, so he helped found a nonprofit housing organization. If I had to sort of sum up Frank, it would be he'd be at his parish in Indiantown, and he would pull what I would call the trifecta. He would conduct Mass in 3 different languages for 3 different groups of people. There'd be the sort of mainstream Indiantown residents. There'd be Spanish Mass for, again, probably many farm workers, and then he'd also do Mass in Creole for the Haitian residents there. And the amusing thing about that, well, it was wonderful that he'd do that, but I was not a great Spanish speaker, but I could even understand he was speaking Spanish with an Irish accent. And I don't speak Creole at all, but I could swear that I could find that Irish accent even when he spoke Creole to the Haitians. And it was exhausting work. He'd start at 9 a.m. in the morning, and he'd end up around 1 or 2. This is a guy who has done his God's work, and he wakes up every morning thinking about others and trying to address what they need and what he can do on their behalf. That's who Frank was when I first met him. That's who he still is, and we all should be grateful we've had him.
Father Frank Walton, please come up and receive the Holly Spalding Award.
Well, saludos, bendiciones de las familias, friend, Axemio, Kishanagay. Two busloads of Miami students, Maculata La Salas over here in the Bay, came yesterday to introduce Valentine's Day to our immigrant children, who are mostly from indigenous families. You know, we may be sitting in the back in class, but we do not want to be left out. We do not want to continue to be invisible. And in fact, on that day, we will dazzle with a card prepared for every mom and teacher and student. I asked one of the boys, introduce yourself to your Miami friend. The boy is a Kurdish Syrian, speaks Aramaic and some Turkish and German that he has learned along the way. Have you told your friend your name? Mom, he muttered. I said, well, Mia is from Miami. You may need to spell it for her. The boy said, my name is H-U-M-A-N. Kimber. Sacred humanity. When the sacred enters your life, what do you do with it? How do you handle it? I only have a minute here, so I better move on. I don't even have enough time to thank you. I'll have to do it individually for including me in the work to which you are giving this marvelous Holly Skolnick Award. And if you let me, or if you know me, I'll cut into his honors time and Indira's time, and we lose the day. But still, let's take 1 second to think about sacred humanity, because that is what AIJ cares for. I regret that in the program notes, I started with the stories of babies falling down the wells in the vegetable fields out here, and with the stories of the agonies of the mothers who lost their children to parathion poisoning. I regret it not because it isn't true, not because the horrors aren't real, but you know, you lose everything when we fail to address the dignity of our neighbors, when we fail to speak of our amazement at their resilience in adversity, when we finally lose that sense of huge reverence, my God, what has God wrought? Reverence. When you see a mom who is watching her child lost to malnutrition, and she walks out in defiance of the misconceived worlds of extortionists, traffickers. She walks out against the collusion of the state or officials who are with labor contractors colluding here. She walks out into the face of the sadly conceived laws designed to convert her into a person without a place. As they like to say, and illegal. The people who are exercising their human right to move, their fundamental right to leave, to get up and go because the baby is stunted, I gotta get out of here, right? People who exercise the corresponding right to arrive, to settle. That's essential humanity. Like that boy. Wow. Like yourselves, I grew up with a horror of the walled-in societies. The societies that would not let their people go. Doesn't our disdain now extend to the NIMBY sickness of the societies that would wall free people out? Can we know what we can do them? Anyway, 1,000 families come to this center monthly. When they acted on family reunification, we were rescued by AIJ with as many as 3 attorneys a day, one in every back room of our little center. Like our people traversing deserts, we're expending our lives in the wilderness of monstrous immigration enforcement and in endless years of pleading for immigration reform. You don't need my lament about the lunacy of our times, but permit me to thank you and congratulate you for constancy and fidelity that matches the endurance of the humanity you serve. T.S. Eliot says it a lot better than I can. These are terrible times. Right? T.S. Eliot says it best. He talks about what you endure in this work, the constant impotence of rage at human folly, the laceration of laughter at what ceases to amuse.
And we're grateful that they do. So here is a brief glimpse into the exceptional life of a really admirable young woman, Indira Gandhi Isla, who is the recipient of the American Immigrant Spirit Award.
We have 3,400 Dreamer students in college, and we shouldn't have any favorites, but we do. And Indira Islas is one of the most wonderful young people I've ever met. She is a junior at Delaware State University. She grew up in Georgia, where she was not permitted to attend the state universities by law. She was banned from those universities, as black students were in the 1940s and 50s. Eager to get an education, although it meant parting from her family, she went to Delaware State, blazed the trail, had a fabulous academic record, but much more. Indira is kind to everyone, is a leader among her fellow students, is modest, and is serious. Indira wants to be a doctor. My guess is she will be a very, very great one. But she's also a leader of dreamers, a leader of the Delaware State community, and a leader of the dreamer community nationally, with wise, strong, informed ideas. about righting the terrible wrong America has done to this group. Indira deserves all the honor you're paying her tonight.
Don Graham, the former publisher of the Washington Post,
and a great supporter of the recipient of this award, Indira Islas. Indira.
I think I started crying before I even got up here. Thank you, Don Graham. Now I know that my name is on this award, but the truth is that my story is not my story alone. It's about my parents, my siblings, the 800,000 dreamers, and all the families being separated at the border. I think that the dreamers in this room can tell you that it's not easy waking up every day, but we do it because we have to, for our families, for ourselves. And my family is what wakes me up every day. And for that reason, I never give up, and I can never think of seeing my dad being handcuffed to a gurney because he was in an accident and was caught driving without a license. I can't stop to think about that because it will break me. Or the fact that when my mom picked me up from track practice when I was in 7th grade, she got stopped and was caught driving without a license. And she was in jail for days. I can't stop to think about that. I have to keep going. And for that reason, my parents are my two heroes who gave up everything in Mexico so that I could have a better future. The president is right about one thing. There is a crisis at our southern border, but it's a humanitarian crisis that he created. Families are being ripped apart, and innocent people seeking refuge from violence and poverty are dying. 2 months ago, dehydration claimed the life of 7-year-old Jacqueline Gaal in Texas, while a common cold killed 8-year-old Felipe Alonso in New Mexico just days later. And I can't help but think that either one of those kids could have been me. But now, we will never know what they were meant to do in this world. Our government of the people, by the people, and for the people will perish from the earth if we fail to recognize the inherent value of the individual, and if we continue to marginalize and oppress the most vulnerable among us. Our government was just held hostage for 35 days in hope of using $5.7 billion to build a symbolic divide. In a futile effort focused purely on power and politics, $6 billion were thrown away. That's $6 billion that could have been used to fund education and healthcare initiatives, or used to combat climate change and gun violence, or used to fix our broken immigration system. If we want to begin fixing our broken immigration system, we must start with unity and putting politics aside so we can listen with our hearts to the stories of those who are asking for our help. Let's not forget that whatever affects one directly affects us all indirectly. Above all, let's not forget that we were all human beings made in the image of God. From the moment I was enrolled in kindergarten to my high school graduation, I faced the American flag and pledged a promise that I vowed to keep even to this day. There are those who say that this is not my country, but it is the only place that I have ever called home. And so I ask of you to please use your voice and your vote to speak up for those who are being oppressed. Because our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. So, I'm a human being, I am undocumented, but I'm also an American. And those are the identities that get me up every day and don't allow me to give up. Thank you, and God bless you.
So it is only fitting that the former mayor of Miami, someone dear to us, is going to introduce Mayor Michael Bloomberg. Manny?
Thank you, Mike, for those very kind words. Although you should know that these days, when I'm introduced, I am introduced only as the coach's father. Well, before I do my job for the evening, I first want to recognize Cheryl. Robin my wife Robin, reminded me tonight how much we enjoy coming to this dinner every night and having you make us cry. I've known Cheryl for some 40 years, dating back on this very important issue of immigration. And it is actually, we fought the good fight over the last 40 years, and it is actually sad that 40 years later, we're still here fighting the same fights. And so, it is my pleasure to join you tonight to introduce my friend, Mike Bloomberg. We were both elected just after 9/11, and I was privileged to work with Mike during my 8 years as mayor and as president of the U.S. Conference of Mayors. Today, I am honored to serve on the board of his foundation, where during the past 9 years, we have invested over $7 billion. $7 billion, let me repeat that. And let me tell you how fun it is to sit on a board where you give away somebody else's $7 billion. To improve the health of our citizens, fight climate change, and expand access and opportunity to highly talented low-income students in America. He has been a mentor and an inspiration to me. Mike is at the forefront of our most pressing challenges. When Washington continuously fails to adopt immigration reform, this is how Mike Bloomberg responds. The diversity that they represent is what makes our city special. This is what makes America great. To those who are railing against immigration, to those politicians who all of a sudden have adopted and embraced xenophobia, I say, open your eyes. The future of the American dream for all Americans depends on our willingness to keep it open for all who wish to pursue it. In the words of Ralph Waldo Emerson, Mike understands that what lies behind us and what lies before us are all small matters compared to what lies within us. Mike appeals to our inner self, that inner self of good, the self that is best expressed in the words of Pope Francis's call to Congress in 2015. Let us treat others with the same passion and compassion with which we want to be treated. Let us all seek for others the same possibilities which we seek for ourselves. In a word, if we want security, let us give security. If we want life, let us give life. If we want opportunities, let us provide opportunities. The yardstick which we use for others will be the yardstick which time will use for us. All of us are quite aware of and deeply bothered by the disturbing social and political situation around us. In a country divided by rhetoric and hate, it is time to rediscover our humanity, Father. Our response must be one of hope and healing, of peace and justice. Our efforts aimed at righting wrongs and promoting the well-being of all individuals. We need leaders who believe that the future does not belong to those content with the present, apathetic toward our common problems. Leaders who can blend vision, reason, and courage, and commit to the ideals of a just and a fair society. Leaders with a passion, not for what America currently is or what it was, but for what it can become. Leaders who believe that it is never enough to fight for what is possible, known, or easily achieved, but rather dream of a better world by making real what currently seems impossible, unknown, or out of reach. We know where Mike Bloomberg stands, not by his words, but by his actions. Hechos, no palabras. We need Mike Bloomberg. Ladies and gentlemen, I introduce my friend, Mike Bloomberg.
Thank you. Good evening to all of you, and buenas noches a todos. We're lucky to have Manny Diaz as a board member of Bloomberg Philanthropies, and I want to thank him for that incredibly kind and generous introduction. Manny, you really read it just the way I wrote it. Thank you. Seriously, this is always a pleasure to come and see Manny here in Miami, especially after the polar vortex that we had in New York. You have no idea how friggin' cold it was. I should come down here more often. At least I'd have more chances to practice my Spanish. I've been taking lessons for years, and I am determined to master speaking Spanish before I die. But I will say that at this rate, I'm going to live a very long time. I've also offered to help Manny with his Spanish, but he's just hopeless, I'm telling you. Anyways, it's an honor to join you all tonight. Americans for Immigrant Justice does some incredibly vital work, as we all know. And I want to say a special thanks to Cheryl Little for inviting me. You are the greatest. I also want to congratulate two very deserving honorees, Father Frank, Father well done, and Indira Essa. You are the greatest, and you are the future of this country, and somehow or other we're going to make it all right. Just keep the fight up. Their stories are so inspiring, and they really go to the heart of what's at stake when we talk about immigration and the future of immigration in New York. Let me tell you what I mean when I say that. I believe immigration is the American story. It really is. The entire basis of our country's success is that people come here to build better, freer lives for themselves and their families. And that is our story. We all have different roots. Manny Diaz and his mother came from Cuba. My grandparents came from Belarus and Lithuania. Maybe you or your ancestors came from Ireland and Germany, Mexico, Colombia, or any place else. But all immigrants have come here seeking exactly the same thing: freedom, and equality, and the opportunity to give their children the chances that they never had. America's spirit of openness and opportunity has made us the wealthiest and most powerful nation in the world. Yes, it's impossible to imagine American life or the American economy without immigrants. Think about this. More than 40% of Fortune 500 companies were started by immigrants or their children. 40%. And some people claim that immigrants take jobs away from Americans. But the data really does prove them wrong. Just take one of the company's headquarters right here, Carnival Cruise Line. It is one of the largest employers in the region, and it was founded by 2 immigrants, one born in Israel and one born in Turkey. Of course, it's not just big businesses that are started by immigrants. All over America, immigrants create small businesses that help form the backbone of our communities. And those businesses employ millions of Americans and provide goods and services that Americans depend on every single day. So we all have different histories, different backgrounds, different journeys, but they all combine to form the same exceptional story, the American story. And there's a reason that the American story is so enduring, because at the heart of it lies an idea that gives our story its greatest power and its greatest promise. We call this the American dream, and that's why we're all here tonight. We all believe in the American dream. I've been lucky enough to live it. My father never earned more than $6,000 a year in his life. But a good education opened doors for me that I never thought were possible. Those doors of opportunity of what the American dream is all about. I'm not talking about getting rich. I'm not talking about getting famous. It's about getting the chance to fulfill your potential and to accomplish something for yourself, for your family, for your community, and for your country. But at this very moment, the American story and the American dream that shapes it are both under attack. They are under attack not merely by foreign enemies that we encounter generation after generation, the ones that cling to ideologies that are founded in repression and intolerance and dictatorship. No, today, the American story and the American dream are under attack by our own American president. From the day he announced his campaign, Donald Trump has never stopped trying to scapegoat immigrants. It is Mexicans and Central Americans today, but it could just as easily be Cubans or Lithuanians tomorrow. Manny's family, my family, your family. Now, there have always been politicians who seek power by preying on the fears of others and resentment towards them. For much of our history, those targets were Catholics and Jews, Irish and Italians, Chinese and Japanese, and of course African Americans and Hispanics. We always emerge stronger, and I believe that we will do this time as well. But there is something different this time. Through most of the 19th and 20th century, the people making xenophobic appeals were typically members of secret societies or sometimes members of Congress. But this time the person making them is the President of the United States. And I believe it shows he does not understand the job and what it means to lead our country. Now, hard as it is to believe, the most xenophobic president of our lifetime is from the immigrant capital of the United States, New York City. In fact, he's from Queens, one of the most diverse places on the face of the earth. When my administration created a 311 government service hotline, we made sure that our operators covered 170 different languages. So you would think that someone from Queens would understand the power and the value of immigration. Sadly, he does not seem to. It's hard not to conclude that the value of diversity in our country is lost on the president. His speeches and his tweets seem to be about playing politics rather than solving problems. And for him, that means offering cheap political gimmicks like the wall instead of real solutions like comprehensive immigration reform. Now, on Tuesday, the president said he's in favor of more legal immigrants. That would be a welcome change. But he spent the past 2 years trying to reduce the number of legal immigrants. So talk is cheap, especially when it comes from someone who has a long history of making empty promises. The one thing we know for sure is that the president's decision to shut down the government over a wall we don't need was a total failure of presidential leadership. And it was also an example of just incompetent executive management. Unfortunately, it's not clear he's learned his lesson, and so it may be up to Congress to strike a deal without him. Keep in mind, for all his talk about declaring a national emergency at our southern border, he's already declared a national emergency on a different American challenge that he's done almost nothing to solve. More than a year ago, he signed a document declaring the opioid crisis to be a national public health emergency. He's right. It is an emergency, and my foundation is working on attacking it. But instead of offering us real solutions, this administration just pretends that a wall can stop the flow of people and drugs into our country. Never mind that most addictive drugs arrive in America through legal points of entry, and some are even sent directly by mail. A massive wall won't stop drugs or people from arriving here illegally, and pretending otherwise is not going to get us anywhere. Now, we do face real challenges on our border with Mexico, some of them created by this administration's outrageous policy of separating children from their parents. It would be hard to imagine a more un-American policy than that, and we should never stand for it. Unfortunately, children at the border are not the only young people affected by the president's xenophobia. Foreign students' enrollment in the United States declined again last year because many young people fear they won't be welcome here. Those students are choosing places like Montreal over Miami, and we are losing out on the talent we need for the future. Now, words matter. And the president's words and policies are hurting our ability to outcompete the rest of the world for talent. And we are going to pay a long-term cost for that unless we change it very soon. Of course, it's not just that young people aren't coming here. There are more than 3 million dreamers who are here already, and they want nothing more than to pursue the American dream. Some of these dreamers are here with us tonight. They were brought here as children. They broke no law. To argue that a child here is in his or her parents' arms, John came here and his or her parents' arms, broke the law, defies logic and reason, and any comprehensive interpretation of what the Founding Fathers would have thought anyone's definition of law-breaking was. Not to mention it lacks any sense of decency and compassion. And yet the president is trying to block those children from staying here. He continues to fight the Obama-era program that granted work permits to those who arrived here as children. He refused to support Democratic legislation that would legalize their status. And he has refused to deal with an immigration system that is broken through and through. Now, I've never been a partisan person. I don't believe either party has a monopoly on good ideas or good people. My good friend John McCain, who was a true American, was a leader on immigration reform. Yes, he does deserve it. I went to Annapolis to address the class about 3 months ago, and I went to see John McCain's grave, and the number of people that had put a stone on his tombstone was quite amazing. I'd like to think that this Congress and this president can reach a comprehensive deal. But that certainly doesn't seem likely based on the present rhetoric. Long term, I believe we need to elect a president in 2020 who can bring the two parties together around real solutions. so that we can fix this and other broken systems once and for all. I'm optimistic it can be done because first and foremost, Americans want it. The public is far more united on these issues than the voices at the extremes want us to believe. That's the good news. The vast majority of us agree that we should control our borders and welcome hard-working people from around the world who want to come here to work and pursue the American dream, and provide a path to citizenship for all who are here. I'll just close with one further thought. One of the reasons I ran for mayor was to help fix what was at the time a failing public school system. I'd visit different classrooms across the city. I'd see all those bright, eager students, many of them either immigrants or the children of immigrants. I'd meet them and I just knew that one of those kids, or eventually some of their children or grandchildren, would grow up to win a Nobel Prize, to cure a deadly disease, or start a business that would employ thousands of people, or lead our city or our country. I knew that because this is the American story. I doubt my grandparents could ever have imagined that their grandson would become mayor of New York City. I know my teachers never would have believed it. But it happened, and it only could have happened in America. All of us are made greater by immigration. All of us are ennobled by the American story. And I want to thank AI Justice and all of you for upholding the American dream. The struggle to live up to our nation's highest ideals is a fundamental part of our story too. And you're leading that struggle. So thank you for your leadership. And thank you for having me here tonight. Don't ever forget, when people vote with their feet, they come to America. God bless America. God bless our American story. And together, let's write a new chapter to keep the American dream alive for generations to come. Thank you.